Life and death on the streets, the children stabbing children for the sake of their reputation. We'll examine rising levels of knife crime and violence in inner-city London and its link to gang culture, fear and so-called respect. I'm Martin Stanford. This is Insight. Welcome to Insight. Children are stabbing children, teenagers killing teenagers, youngsters carrying knives as a threat for protection or to improve their image on the streets. Those are the stark realities of life in parts of London, a capital city, like many others, full of wealth and opportunity for some, poverty and fear for others. Last year, there were more than 20,000 knife attacks. 60 people were killed. More young people are carrying knives on the streets, even in schools. We'll examine efforts being made to tackle the problem and its similarities to other cities struggling with inner-city violence. First, we hear from three people living through it. The father of a murdered 10-year-old, a former gang member turned mentor, and a 17-year-old trying to use music to find a better life.
This is life. That's word to the single mums and fatherless sons that never really live life. Mums, he's stressed with a hard time. I see the little boys out with a flick knife, flipping them patches to get by. Ducking from sirens, ducking from trident, blacked out with a push bike. But see, this is life.
Yeah, my name is Richard Taylor, the father of Damilola Taylor, who was tragically stabbed to death the year 2000 in Peckham. We founded the Damilola Taylor Trust, and we've been doing a lot of work with young people in schools to find solution to combating the surge of knife crime in London. It's something that we've gone through, you know, and the way my life has changed since we lost Damilola Taylor. There's no occasion that occurs in my life every day that I don't see death of another young person as a terrible thing. That it's not a question of bringing back the aspect of Damilola's tragedy, because it's always there. That tragedy is always there. You know, you can't go away. My life can never be the same. So when such happens, I feel the same way for the family of the victim, how they will be, you know, how their mental situation will be when, you know, especially, you know, a child, an only son of a family, you know, being taken away tragically like that. I always feel, you know, this is unbearable. Or the incidents that usually occur has been born out of hatred, out of jealousy, out of, you know, those who are not doing well. They are jealous of those doing well. So they believe that they have to cut them down in order for them to get, you know. So any small fracas or confrontation, they just bring out knife and use it. It's become something that is so, it has spread all over the place that the authorities cannot control or find solutions to it. But in my own view, you know, the group of people, young people we work with, you know, do a lot of positive, we get lots of positive results from them, because majority of them are the ones that are doing well. They imbibe education, they want to get into employment, they are very ambitious, you know, and then they have a family to support them. you know. But most of these young people that often, you know, get into trouble have problems at home, broken homes, one-parent family, you know. So those are the things that do occur, you know, to develop the life of these young people that, you know, carry on into negativity in life. Most of these kids that we are talking about are all trying to use music instead of education. They want to become rich overnight. They want to compete amongst themselves, and those who amongst them that are doing well are usually the victims. They will cut them down. They'll kill them. So those are the things that have allowed the escalation of knife crime in London, and we see it every day. For me, anytime I hear about another killing or tragic loss of another young person, it affects me very badly because, like I explained, it takes me back another 16 years.
My name is Shelton Thomas. I'm a former gang member. I now run a successful consultancy and training company where we train multi-agencies, local authorities, government officials on understanding gang mentality. Well, what's changed from my days to now, 30 years on, is the fact that age group has got younger, and there were more absent fathers, and there are more dysfunctional families. Now, I know this is a sore subject because people don't want to hear that. People still want to blame the government, they want to blame bad housing, they want to blame that. But it doesn't matter, because if you put a family that is dysfunctional into a nice house, they're still going to mess that nice house up. And what people are failing to understand is that the reason we're in this mess, and it's got worse, the violence have got worse now than it was 30 years ago, is that 30 years ago, my guy that was in charge of me, that was above me, my gang leader when I was young, wouldn't give me a gun. A gang leader today will give a 12-year-old a gun. He won't feel no way, as long as that 12-year-old can pay for it or rent it. That's the difference. We're talking about the whole thing has broken down into I don't care, I just want to make money. So if an 11-year-old goes to a 15-year-old and says, look, I need a piece, he's not even going to ask him what you want it for. How much you got? Boom, here you are. So we're talking about there's a propensity of violence, or a propensity to use violence in such extreme measures because their home life is such a mess. You know, and I'm not suggesting that young people who come from dysfunctional house are all violent. What I am saying is there is a correlation between the violence that we're seeing and the fact that these young men are coming from dysfunctional backgrounds. There is definitely a correlation. Secondly, for me, the age group, the average age of a gang member is 12. So when you got a 12-year-old, if you put a knife into a 12-year-old and you put a knife into an 18-year-old, the 18-year-old is more likely to think about what he's going to do, because he's thinking, if I stab him, I may go to jail, this may happen. But the 12-year-old, he wants to make a name for himself. He wants to make respect. He wants to get respect because he's got nothing else going for him, so he wants to get respect. So for him, he don't care about pushing a knife in somebody. You have to start at home. I'm in total agreement that when people say we need to look at the housing, we need to look at how people are housed, we need to look at how children, what schools they go to, I'm in total agreement with that. What I'm not in agreement is that we're forgetting you still have to come from a family. You still have to leave your house with the view of going to school to learn. But if you're an angry person and your mum's angry and you ain't got a father figure, you ain't got a positive male role model, you're going to school and the teacher says something to you. I know young men that have threatened teachers, like not just said, oh, I'm going to do you this, literally waiting for the teacher outside the school and with the mum. So we're in a world we're not getting it right because we're trying to get the government to do something that they can't do on their own. The government can only fix one half of it. The other half, the families have got to fix. We can't think the government giving me a nice house and my child goes to school and threatens a teacher and think that's going to, it won't make a difference. So, yes, the government has a part to play, but I think we have more of a part than they do as community.
I'm young Yizzy. I'm a 17-year-old grime artist coming from Southeast London, Lewisham.
G-R-I-M to the E, that's K-I-D till a man relax. Certain man are chatting and bragging about P, that leave that know that a man I don't see that. G-R-I-M to the E, that's K-I-D till a man relax. Certain man are chatting and bragging about P, that leave that know that a man I don't see that. G-R-I-M to the E, Lewisham boy B-L-U-E, Southeast stand like N-O-V. Don't really know that I'm a young G-R-I-M to
It's
the
life. Like, happens on a daily basis. Just because you see it on the TV or you don't see it on the TV, it still happens. Like, we know it happens. Like, yeah, if you know the person, you're sad. If you don't know the person, it's life. Get me? Like, it's not really like a big thing that happens anymore. Like, maybe if somebody gets shot, then oh yeah, because that doesn't really happen. But stabbings happen all the time. It's not a new thing. Like, it doesn't make me feel really, unless I know the person, it doesn't really make me feel a type of way, because, you get me, like, it happens. A bad family, or coming from a bad family, is not in the same category as the government not helping. Because first of all, for people in an urban community and for people my age, I just want to point out the government does nothing. I don't care what you tell me. I don't care what anyone tells me, especially where we live in Southeast London, the government does nothing. You get me? You're closing down libraries, you're closing down youth clubs. In fact, you do less than nothing. You actually take things away. So that's the government, which is a separate kind of thing. Like, coming from a bad family, if you come from a bad family, you come from a bad family. It's like what I said before, you make the best of it, you make what you can of it. You can judge, but you're not there. Like, you're not involved. Like, you got middle class people sitting behind nice houses and nice families and people that live up in the city, and they're judging on their high horse as they usually do. Like, you don't have a clue what it is because you've never been there yourself. At the end of the day, the whole point of this is to do music, to do really well, to look after my family, to look after my friends, and essentially move away from what I'm saying in my songs. Like, nobody, if anybody in Southeast London or North London or East London or certain parts of London tell you, yeah, this is where I want to be living for the rest of my life, then they're an idiot. Because nobody wants to stay around here for the rest of their life. You get me? You survive, you do your thing, and then you leave. And then there are a lot of people that try and do that, and in whatever sense of whatever they're doing, whether it's music or other things, a lot of people that get caught up and mix up in stuff are people that get greedy, or people that they get involved because they want, not because they need or because they have to, because they want. Like, I do music because I like my music, but music is my way of kind of doing something in life. I'm not a person that will sit there and judge other people, because one, that's going to do nothing for you. Two, that's going to do nothing for me. And three, it's wasting time. And if there's one thing I hate is wasting time, and if there's one thing that people my age in my type of environment cannot do, is be wasteful of time, because you don't know how much time you've got.
This is life, fam, I still wouldn't change it, no way. I'm paving a path for a new day, so those lost in the dark find their way.
Well, to discuss that further, I'm joined by Lester Holloway from the race equality think tank, the Runnymede Trust. And also with us is entrepreneur Ismail Ashodi, who is a motivational speaker who helps to mentor disadvantaged and vulnerable young people. Thanks both for being with us. Ismail, take two kids, disadvantaged circumstances, One gets involved in knife culture and violence, and his life spirals down. The other doesn't. What's the deciding factor between the two?
You made a choice, but it's a very difficult situation. When you make a choice, you also make a choice not to be around certain type of people anymore. And that's the part where a lot of people can't do. They can't change and stay out of it because they still live around it. Yeah. So you be tested. Okay, you want to leave, but now we're going to test you saying, if you want to leave, that means you can't be around us in a way anymore. You can't speak around us.
What, the power to conform is overwhelming, is it?
Yeah.
And most people succumb to that.
Most people succumb to the fact that they can't transition. There's a transition stage. One has to change and go straight for the change without looking back or looking left or looking right, and know that, yes, you're on a mission by yourself, lonely. A lot of kids can't be lonely. They're not ready to be lonely to go on a journey.
That's perfectly understandable, isn't it? There's no one to help them.
There's nobody there. A lot of households don't have the dads there. A lot of mothers are young. There's a situations in the cities, because you go around and you're speaking to people like that every day. I'm going to leave here and go and speak to people like that. It's normal for them, as the young brother said. It's normal to hear someone got stabbed. How much is a knife? £1 for a life? That's what some people call it. £2 for a life? And these are the things that we're not understanding. It's bigger issues. The government have got the funds. And what the funds help with is you need to go and find the people that have made a transition and left and let them come and speak, because someone speaking to you that you know or someone speaking to you that you can relate to is better than someone that you can't relate to.
But is it almost a rite of passage that most teenagers have to go through this, veering to a darker side and then find a way through it? Or can you actually plough on and get there without resorting to gun culture or gang culture or knife usage?
You can. It's rare. Because what happens is you're growing up in it. From young, from school, you're growing up and you're walking out of your house, you're hearing sirens. That does something to you. You're going to school, people are talking about violence. That does something to you. You live in a community of violence. So what you've got is it becomes part of your life, that this is normal. And before you know it, what happens is no daddy at home, you start wanting things. No mother able to provide, you start wanting things. So it starts from wants, and then you feel the need to now have it. Okay, I want it, I'm gonna have it. Who do I go to? The guy that's got it. A lot of these people are blind leading the blind,
And Lester, there is a new facet to this as well, that apart from all that we've heard, and there are the depressing circle of repetitive instance of all this, is now people who may not have carried a knife before are just frightened or more aware of this. So they're sort of carrying a knife for self-defense, and then they might get involved in some kind of violent incident too.
And it's been that way for a very long time, and we've had generational inequality, particularly as far as black communities are concerned. We've had government inertia when it comes to dealing with the underlying problems that are actually causing this deprivation.
What do you think those underlying problems are then?
Well, I think they are multiple problems. I think they are the education system. You've got criminalisation because stop and search is so high and is targeted largely towards black youth. Black youth are more likely to end up in the criminal justice system, and therefore with a criminal record their prospects in the world of work are extremely hampered. You've got all sorts of institutional and systemic barriers that face people. This is not making excuses for anyone. It's not making excuses for the violence that young people are perpetrating against themselves. But it does go a long way to
break that down
it.
a bit, because these statistics are difficult, aren't they? And they're often banded around. But if a disproportionate number of black youths from disadvantaged areas are carrying knives, is it no wonder that a disproportionate number of black youths are stopped and searched?
Well, the studies have shown that when it comes to criminality, no one ethnic group is more likely or less likely than any other to be committing a crime. There is undoubtedly the case that there are different patterns when it comes to crimes being committed, but largely that's down to geography and circumstance. But black youth are not more likely to commit crime than white working class youth, for example. But I think that we do actually have to look at barriers. We had Shelton Thomas on your package there talking about the distress when it comes to the parents of the children who are young people who are out there on the streets at the moment. And we must remember that they themselves faced educational barriers. They themselves faced barriers which have kept them in the inner cities. What we have seen in the inner cities is two things. We've seen the price of austerity. You had talk in your package about libraries being closed and educational facilities and sports facilities. But on top of that, you've had a penalty against black families. And the Runnymede Trust, in conjunction with the Women's Budget Group, did an analysis of this budget that has just passed and actually found that black single women are £2,000 worse off per year as a result of the tax and benefit changes from 2010.
So that's further ammunition for this sense that the government isn't doing enough or the government is against us. In fact, they're taking away opportunity.
Yeah, you're taking away what wasn't there already. You're reducing it. It wasn't there in full force, you're now reducing it. You're giving people more of a reason, fuel for fire. Okay, well, you're not doing that for us, so why should we do this for you? And what you're having is a lot of kids don't have fathers, so they're growing up around one another. You're my brother, you're my family. They start forming a family outside. A lot of these kids have bipolar issues because when they go home, they have to be one way. And when they come out their house, they have to be another way. These are also issues that we need to focus on because these kids are not the same people at home. A lot of them aren't. A lot of their parents don't know they're getting up to the outside until the police knocks on the door.
Well, you said parents, but of course it's often a parent.
Parents.
But on the other hand, it's too easy, isn't it, to jump on single parenting and blame it. There must be dozens, thousands of single mums doing a great job in raising their family and keeping their teenagers safe.
Yes, they are.
But many don't.
Yes, because
so how do you support the ones that do it well?
You need people that have the experience to do it. You need people that have made their way out of it. You see, a lot of the youth have an issue with people become successful and leave us.
Yes.
Why don't they come back and help us? And how do people come back and help?
Well, that seemed to be the aspiration, particularly for our young musician, wasn't it? Yes. Success is defined by, I get out of there.
I get out of it.
I get out of the area.
They all want to get out, but when they get out, what happens to the ones left? They might have kids that want to now go back and hang out with people there. What's happened to that society? Still the same, but you've moved out. You as a person don't change things. You have to get together with fathers. Fathers get together. Mothers get together. The violence we're talking about, we're projecting violence. We need to start projecting love.
And Lester, this is government policy about housing, about urban areas, about investment. Now, our speaker earlier suggested actually, even if you give someone a nice house, if they are dysfunctional, they may well go on to trash it. But does that mean, is that a reason alone for governments to try?
No, I actually disagree with him. I think that giving opportunities for increased income actually changes behaviour. And
that's employment policy, isn't it?
Well, no, it is government policy overall because it takes more than just employment policy to create those conditions.
Yes.
If we're looking at the United States, after the Jim Crow laws, you actually had affirmative action which was introduced to counteract the inherent biases in terms of African Americans getting opportunity to jobs. With affirmative action, I know it's been rolled back, but it actually, by opening up those doors, it created a wealthy black middle class, which is not beset by the problems of the black working class in America.
But Lester, do they then move to middle class and stay there?
Yes, or
do they then help?
That is clearly an issue, and it's an issue in America as it is over here. So I'm not decrying that at all. But what I do think is an issue is that we in Britain we have very limited social mobility across all ethnicities. It is particularly bad for black families, for BME families overall, but for black families worst of all. And that's what we need to also deal with.
But you can effect change, can you? If we try and look for a positive here, you will go and talk to some young people. I don't suppose it's just instant like that, is it? But you can sow the seeds of an idea in their mind.
And water it.
What do they need to hear?
They need to hear the truth, reality. Reality is, apart from talking, they see it in you. They want to see somebody like them doing well, but it's not doing crime. So then they can emulate them. Okay, this person's talking to me from another side of life. I could maybe understand this, because what they're used to is criminals talking to them. So what do they want to do? They want to emulate criminals. And what a lot of young youth now say is, you're breaking down schools and libraries to build nice houses. And then you bring people with good money, good jobs, to live around us with nice cars. What do you want us to do? You're even you're putting this more and more into our face. It's not a reason, but then we need to give them more reason to go away from it. We need to give them more prospects, you know. Communities like communities need to come to people like yourself, and others need to connect together. Together we can get a lot of things done.
Ismail, Lester, thank you both very much indeed.
Thank you.
We end our programme with the Insight Bite, and this time it's an attempt to create a positive message from knife crime. One young artist has decided to take 100,000 knives permanently off the streets by transforming them into a giant sculpture. Knife Angel is made from confiscated blades donated by police forces across the United Kingdom. The artist, Alfie Bradley, told Insight he engraved personal messages from victims' families onto the angel's metallic feathers. It's hoped the 8-metre-high work will soon go on display on a plinth in London's famous Trafalgar Square. And that's all from me for now. I'm Martin Stanford. That was Insight.